Everything is going right for the Arizona Diamondbacks, but do they have what it takes to keep up the momentum and close the rest of that gap?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, the show where we talk nothing but the Diamondbacks Monday through Friday. And thank you so much for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I'm your host, Dane Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Now, today we are in an off day. There was no game yesterday, and I think a lot of players needed that. And we are going into the Minnesota Twins series later today, and I am very excited. It's a series hopefully we should be winning. Hopefully, of course, any team can beat anybody, but out of all of our opponents coming up, this is the one that we should win. So we are going to be looking out for that. Anyway, today's segments, we're going to be talking about the updated playoff picture because one team in the playoff picture did play yesterday. Most didn't, but one very important team did. We're going to talk about that. We are also going to be talking about what the Diamondbacks need to do as far as changing their approach and what things they need to be continuing to do, what things they need to not stop doing in order to make it to the postseason. Because they're absolutely there. They can make it. They're not out of the picture. They are just as likely as any other team to make the postseason at this point. But they need to be playing good baseball, and I'm going to share a few of my thoughts there. And then finally, very exciting, the final segment of the show today, we're going to be hearing from you guys, and we're going to hear your thoughts. I'm going to be reading your comments here on the podcast, and we are going to have a little bit of a discussion about those things. So let's get into it. Right now, the updated playoff picture, the Mets played the Phillies yesterday, and I was watching that game very excited to see if the Mets would somehow lose their sixth game in a row, their seventh in the last 8 games. And sure enough, they did. The Mets have lost 6 games in a row, and thank goodness too, because we've lost a whole bunch over the last week. But with this loss, we are now only 3 games behind the final wild card spot. The Giants and the Reds are ahead of us by down by 1.5 games, so we're 1.5 games behind them. But we are neck and neck. The Giants right now are going to be playing the Dodgers, who the Dodgers right now, by the way, are very eagerly trying to secure that final that playoff berth. They're trying to clinch their position in the playoffs because for the first time in a long time, they're not the go-ahead winners here. They're only, I think, 2 or 3 games ahead of the Padres right now. So they're going to be playing hard. They definitely have a lot to play for. The Giants do as well, so it's going to be a pretty rough series for both of them. The Mets are going to be playing the Red Hot Rangers, who are also a game and a half behind their wild card spot in the American League. So the Rangers have been playing amazing baseball lately, and they are fired up. So that's going to be a rough one for the Mets as well. The Reds are playing the A's, the Athletics. I was going to say the Oakland A's, but they're not the Oakland A's anymore. So just the A's. That one, I'm hopeful that the A's can upset the Reds there a little bit, but I am expecting a win from the Reds, so I don't know how much ground we're going to get on them this next series, though they are playing some tougher opponents coming up, so we will have room there. But the Cardinals, who are a game behind us right now, are facing the number 1 team in baseball, the Brewers, and they're going to be playing them 6 times between now and the end of the year. So if we're lucky, the Cardinals will be out of the playoff picture in a little bit. We are currently 1 game below 500. We're 73-74, and we're going to be facing the Minnesota Twins starting today, who are 64-82. So they are a bit below us, and they're the only team, I think, for the rest of the season that has a record lower than ours is. So which the Diamondbacks have shown they can beat a team with a higher win percentage than us. So we are very hopeful for that. Nearly all of these teams, though, are within one series worth of games. We're 3 games behind. In theory, I'm not counting on this, but I just interesting to put in perspective. In theory, we could be in that final wild card spot by the end of this series. If we were to sweep, the Mets were to get swept, and the Giants and Reds lost their series, the Diamondbacks are in. So again, that's very wildly optimistic and not super likely that all those things are going to happen. But just put in perspective, that's where we're at right now. And there's still 15 games left, which brings me to my next point. There is still time for burnout here. This happens every year with the final playoff teams who are going for that wild card spot. They're the teams that have played excellent baseball and they have the skill to play the long game. And like I'm thinking like the Phillies and the Brewers, for example. They are excellent teams. They're very, very good at what they do, and they can afford to let off the gas a little bit. And they could lose games, but even still, they typically don't lose games when they take the gas, their foot off the pedal a little bit. So they avoid burnout. But then you got these teams like everybody who we've been talking about, and they are pedal to the metal. They're going as hard as they can because they want to secure that final spot. But what happens is come the last series or two, they're wiped out. And we see this every single time. At least for the last handful of years, the team that makes the playoffs isn't the one that is winning like crazy. It's the one that loses the least. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but that it basically happens that way where it's okay, well, we lost, but if they lose, then we're in. So, and that's just basically how it's going. So I think if the Diamondbacks can avoid burnout over these next 2 or 3 weeks, then that gives them a huge advantage over all the other teams. Now, I think that Torey Lovullo's strategy when it comes to avoiding burnout is very unique amongst other managers. And so I think they have that going for them. But that all being said, the Diamondbacks are going to need to be playing very tough baseball. They're going to have to be playing very, very hard. So there's still that element to it. But anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about the changes that the Diamondbacks need to be making in order for them to make the postseason, as well as some things that they've been doing that they definitely need to continue doing. But before we do that, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just the hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. And you can feel good about it knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. All righty, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything. And I had to fix my earpiece, so I'm just stalling, really. The Diamondbacks need to make a few changes, and I know these are on their radar. I'm going to bring them up now, though, because I think it's important to take a look at this and watch where they go from here as far as these things go. The first thing that they need to do is they need a Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte reset, and they need it like right now. They have not been playing good baseball lately. Their swings have been off. I was gonna say their defense has been fine, but they're just not looking like themselves, and it would appear that it's from either overwork or they are just in a funk mentally. Whatever it is, they need a reset of some kind. And yesterday they had the day off, and maybe that was all they needed. If it were me, I would probably look at saying, okay, you know what? Carol, you're going to sit out one more day, or Marte, you're going to sit out one more day, or whatever it needs to be. Additionally, Geraldo Perdomo, he had a really good game the other day. If he's good to go, if that's all he needed, then keep him in. We're fine. But if he's still showing signs of struggling like he's been over the last week or two, then I think he's another one that you need a little bit of a reset. So whatever that looks like for them, that's I think what they desperately need. And maybe it's just like what Perdomo had in the last Giants game. Maybe Carroll just needs to hit a walk or a leadoff home run, and he just needs to break it open, and then he's fine again. That might be it. And so, but whatever it is, it needs to happen, and it needs to happen right now. So I would rather go without them for a few days now than have this go on for another 2 weeks. Additionally, Torey Lovello's been doing a good job, I think, at scouting out the players that he's going to be using in next year's roster. So he's playing a lot of his younger players, which he has to be playing his younger players. You have so many injuries right now that he has to put them in. But we have people like Adrian Del Castillo, we have Barossa, we have Jake McCarthy, we have a bunch of other bullpen arms that they need reps. They need to be up there. They need to be in, but I think they've been put in a lot of high leverage moments. And Locklear was also one of these where it's we need a walk-off base hit, or we need a tying base hit, or something, or a home run. We need something to save the game. And we're gonna pinch hit. We're gonna pull out Gabby Moreno, and we're gonna put Del Castillo in. And it's like, what? Why are we doing that? Like, that feels kind of like not a very good idea. Which it sounds like Lovello's thinking, okay, well, if I put in Locklear in this moment and he gets a walk-off base hit, then he's good, and that's good. That's all he needs as far as his confidence, and that'll help just turn a new leaf, and he's going to be great after that. And that's fair. But I think at this point in the season, and as we are showing more and more promise that we're going to actually make it to the playoffs, I think still put them in, just do it in lower leverage moments, kind of the lower stakes plays and games, which if we're winning by a bunch, put them in. If we're losing by a bunch, put them in. But it feels weird when it's like we're down by one, there's a guy on third with 2 outs, and you're going to put in Del Castillo, who struck out 4 times in the other game. So, but similarly, but here's the thing too, is that's where Jordan Lawler has been the entire year, but he's starting to come around. And I actually have here in my notes that we need to be letting him play more, because he's finally figuring it out. And so if Del Castillo, Barossa, McCarthy, and all the other players that I've mentioned, if all they need is to just figure it out real quick, and they're able to do that in this next series, and then they're going to be great after that, that's good. But that's kind of the gamble that you're running there. And either way, it's good for the long term, I think, as well, because you always have next year, and you want to build for next year, and you want to have everything ready to go. So either way, that's good for next year. But I want to see them win this year. Like, I want to see success in 2025. So, and I know a lot of you do, and I know they do. So it's that balance that they have to find between burning the candle at both ends and taking it easy and playing the long game. It's kind of tricky, but Jordan Lawler, I think he needs to be playing more, because he is seeing the ball well. He hits an extra base hit every single game he's playing in now. His average is slowly but steadily going up. He's hitting RBIs. He's stealing bases. and he's adding to that chaos that we're seeing from a lot of players that Pete Corbin Carroll brings, Ketel Marte brings, Perdomo brings, and now Blaze Alexander, Tim Tawa, they're bringing, and I think Lawler fits into that perfectly. And so I think he needs to be playing more often. But let's go ahead and talk about some things that the Diamondbacks have been doing correctly that I think a lot of other maybe teams aren't doing so well, that I think as long as they can keep doing these things, we have a pretty good chance at making it. And one of those is that the pitching lately has been incredible. And I think the reason for that is because the pitchers have been attacking the strike zone much more than they were before. It's almost kind of like they're saying, you know what, if they're going to hit it, they're going to hit it. But I'm not going to run my pitch count up. I'm not going to walk them. I'm not going to give them easy bases. They have to work for the bases. And if they don't, they're going to strike out. And I really like that, seeing that. Sometimes it doesn't pan out. I think Zach Gallen has been really good lately at attacking the strike zone and going hard at the strike zone. Eduardo Rodriguez has been doing very good at that as well. Chrismat even was doing pretty well at that, but both Chrismat and Gallen in their last appearances were getting lit up by the Giants offense. So there is some give and take there, but I think overall it's working pretty well. And again, it's keeping that pitch count down. We're having to go to the bullpen a lot less, and it lets us use one or two guys per game, rotating them out, giving them plenty of rest, and not letting the same team see the same pitcher more than once, which I think is extremely valuable. On the other side of the plate, we are being very patient at the plate. Geraldo Perdomo has kind of struggled offensively lately, but one thing he hasn't struggled with is driving up the opposing pitch count. Every at bat he has, it gets to a full count, and oftentimes it'll be 0-2, and then 8 pitches later he walks. So he's been doing a very, very good job at that. Marte, Carroll have also they've made it on base a fair amount over the last series or two. They're all walks, but they're bases, and I think that's a big key to why that's working. And then when you get guys like Carroll and Perdomo and Lawler and McCarthy and those guys on base, Blaze Alexander, you get them on base, you have them stealing, you have them making the pitcher nervous. They're throwing wild pitches. There's so many wild pitches thrown against the Diamondbacks. Have you guys noticed that? And so many, like, I feel like every game, at least there's one just wild pitch or 2 or 3 wild pitches that advances all the runners. And we've definitely scored a few runs because of that. And I don't know if that's normal. I should look into that. But it feels like for the Diamondbacks, the opposing team gets nervous when we're on base. Let your hot players play. I think there's avoiding burnout, and that's very important. But I think if you have a guy who's doing well, don't pull him in the middle of the game. Don't sit him in game 2. If Tim Tawa comes out today and hits 2 home runs and gets an additional 2 RBIs or whatever, and he's doing great, and defensively he's doing great, play him in the next game. Even if he's on the same side of the plate as the pitcher, I think play him. He's on a roll. He's doing good. I'm not a manager, granted. I don't know if you guys knew that. I'm not actually a Major League Baseball manager, so obviously I don't have a perfect perspective on that. But that, I think, is a key to getting that momentum and keeping it. We've already talked about using the bullpen sparingly. The Diamondbacks have been doing very well at that. They pretty much have only been using 1 to 2 bullpen arms a game. Sometimes they need to bring in a third to get 1 or 2 outs at the end of the game, but they've been doing a really good job. And again, not letting the other team see the same pitcher more than once has been very beneficial. So keep that up, especially with the Giants, who will be facing next week. They've seen a good amount of our pitchers. If we can keep them on their toes and not show them all the same guys that they've already seen, then I think that helps a ton. Our defense has been very, very good. There have been a few moments, though, where we have those little errors, those little infield errors, and those have cost us games recently. And so as long as we can continue the defense and we can continue that focus and we're able to actually make those plays and execute them without giving up easy bases, then I think that will save us a ton. And I love seeing Blaze Alexander out there doing his defense thing. Incredible. A huge, huge improvement over the last year. And I think that has been very exciting. And then again, just continue to fine tune that balance between playing the long game and playing the short game. Definitely play the long game. We need to do that. And Torey Lovello is amazing at doing that. But keep yourself open to playing the short game as well. And don't be afraid to make a little sacrifice to win the game today. Is kind of what my thoughts are on there. But enough of my thoughts. Let's get some of your thoughts right after this. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. First of all, before we get into all of this, I just wanted to say thank you. You guys have been very nice. If you're not aware, this is my first week doing the podcast. This is my 5th episode, and you guys have been so nice and kind in the comments and making me feel all special and warm and fuzzy. I'm trying to post shorts as well, and you guys are doing very good at commenting on those. I do read every single comment, and I try to respond to every single comment as well. So please keep them coming. You don't need to be just telling me how good I am, though. I won't say no to that. But I do really, what I want to do is I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the Diamondbacks and the team and your predictions and what you want to see from the team. And we have a pretty wide range of thoughts here that I do want to share with you guys. But please, if you're listening to this on YouTube, just comment on YouTube. If you're not listening to this on YouTube, you're just listening to it, futuristic radios in headphones in your cars or whatever. I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to do a bit. Then go to YouTube, youtube.com/LockedOnDiamondbacks. I'm sure there's other ways to reach me, but right now that's the only one I'm aware of. Again, I'm new to this. So if you go to YouTube, comment on any video, I will see it and I'll respond and we can talk about it on the next off day. Anyway, this first one, I don't have graphics up, by the way, because I don't know how to do that yet either. As I mentioned, first week. But this first comment comes from Devin Pattison, who says, for my prediction, what I want get in the playoffs. If it were to happen, it'll be the most stressful entry ever, coming down to game 162 and relying on another team to lose while we win. Realistic, they're going to get us within a game, and the pressure is going to be too much for the young guys, and we miss again. Next year is exciting to think about, though. I think that's a very big possibility. That's what happened last year, and it's almost what happened the year before. The thing about it, though, is I think everybody's in that position. I think all the teams, the Mets right now are feeling it. They are sweating, and they're in free fall. The Giants are on a hot streak right now, but there's still 2.5 weeks left. And they're playing some hard teams. They just lost a game against the little no-name Arizona Diamondbacks. And so if this next series doesn't go their way, then they might be in that position as well. The Reds, they're playing the A's. After that, they have a pretty rough stretch ahead of them. And the Cardinals, they're playing the Brewers a bunch of times. They have a handful of difficult opponents ahead of them as well. So it'll probably be not who wins the most, but who loses the least. And that's kind of a bummer because that's not very fun to watch. But I think that's going to end up what it's going to end up being, which means we realistically, we could lose it by a few games, and that would be a real bummer. And that's, they do that where they get your hopes up and then you just fail. I'm wearing a Suns shirt right now, and that's just Arizona sports for you right there. You're not an Arizona sports fan if you're not intimately familiar with that feeling. But I think that they're just as likely to make it as they are not to make it at this point. I'm kind of giving them 50-50. And I know that's generous, but that's kind of where personally I'm at right now. So anyway, Devin, this was from a few days ago. So if you're hearing this, I'd love to hear your response, and I will be sure to respond to you on that comment. The next one is from David Teeters. He says, my biggest issue with people who say that they should fire Torey, this is talking about Torey Lovullo, I've been talking about him a good deal this week, is that I don't foresee anyone coming in and doing something better. We can have disagreements on some of the in-game decision he makes, but in the grand scheme of the season, they are very minor. But for what this team is, I don't see another manager just coming in and turning things around. There's also no denying the personal connection Lovullo and the roster, who plays very hard for him. Then you add the personal connection of Hazen and Lovullo. I'm not sure Hazen has it in him to fire Lovullo unless it was so blatantly obvious that he had to go. And it is also my personal belief that Hazen is more to blame for the results of this season than Lovullo, given the initial failure to correct the bullpen before the start of the season. The injury snowballed and exposed that mistake. So there's a lot here. First of all, if you want to fire Torey, who are you going to bring in? Now, there are some people that you could bring in. I'd have to do a little bit more digging, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. If Torey Lovullo is not the manager next year, who should be the manager next year? I also don't foresee anybody doing a better job. I think Torey's connection with the team is so strong that would be rough. When Torey came in and he turned the team around in 1 year. He did an amazing job, but the team was not in a good place. And like last year, the Diamondbacks didn't do very well. The year before 2023 or in 2022, 2021, the Diamondbacks were one of the worst teams in baseball under Torey Lovullo. But you didn't get the sense that it was hopeless. It was just things aren't gelling right now. Things aren't meshing quite right. We need to give it another year or two to get the ball rolling again. And Torey Lovullo is the best man to kind of make that happen. But I do agree with you. I think also, here's the thing. You mentioned that Mike Hazen probably doesn't have it in him to fire Torey Lovullo. I think you're right. I think if Lovullo goes, it's because Hazen is also going. I think if you're going to get rid of one, you kind of have to get rid of both, and you have to have like a whole regime change. I would be open to a whole regime change. I don't want to see that. I really like Torey Lovullo. I like Mike Hazen, but I do agree that Mike Hazen did not do much for the bullpen this year. He did a lot for the starting rotation. That also didn't really work out. But that's the thing. The injuries snowballed and exposed the mistake. Like you said, I don't want to talk nice about the Dodgers, but the Dodgers have been riddled with injuries this year. Just absolutely filled with injuries. But they're still number one in the division because they have the infrastructure to fill those vacancies. They've done the back end work to make that happen. They weren't just relying on everybody staying healthy like we kind of were with our bullpen. So excellent point, David. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts in the comments, so please let me know. Another one comes from Enough Said. That's their name on YouTube. I think this season is going to turn into more of a training type of season for our younger players. I really wish the Snakes would go into the postseason, but I recognize the odds are not on our side. They aren't on our side. They still aren't on our side. I say 50-50. I'm the only one that's saying anything above 10%, probably even. That's probably still even being generous. But yeah, I think this is absolutely turning into a training type season for our younger players. I think Jordan Lawler is having an amazing training session. I think he's going to come out next year much, much better, much stronger, much more consistent. Blaze Alexander, Tim Tawa, I think have had a great training season so far. I think that a few other players are maybe not quite starting lineup ready, but they are one step closer. So, and I think this playing late in the season and winning games is very good for them. So even if we don't make the postseason, and I hate saying that because it feels like I'm a quitter, but even if the Diamondbacks don't make the postseason, I think the fact that we were able to win as many games this late into the season with the younger players is a huge win already, because a lot of teams right now have their AAA roster in the MLB, in the majors on their team, but they're losing, and they're losing every game, and their pitchers are giving up tons of hits and home runs. Their ERA is skyrocketing. The batting averages are plummeting. That's not a good way to train your young players. But when your young players are coming in and they're actually winning and they're having fun and they're seeing, success, then they come into next year and they go, oh man, now we're starting from scratch. Let's go. And they hit the ground running. So I absolutely agree. We actually have a few other comments that I'm not going to be able to get to because we are running out of time. But you guys, tonight is our first game in Minnesota against the Twins. Brandon Pfaadt is going to take on Pablo Lopez in game 1 of a series that we desperately need to win. I will be back here first thing Monday morning, so I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. So be sure to subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. We're here on YouTube, and we're also on all of the places where you get your podcasts, so make sure to follow us on there. If you want to see more of me, you can go and find more of my YouTube channels and other projects at slackshack.tv. And thank you so much for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB game night, every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. My name is Dana Biggs, and we will see you guys on Monday.